Hi and welcome back to the course. In this video we're going to be creating new stores using our API. However, we're not going to be able to test the creation of stores using our JavaScript application because that gets slightly more complicated and this is not a JavaScript course. However, there is another way of testing the API and we are going to do that the right way really. We normally wouldn't test the API using JavaScript, we would test it using a specific API testing tool, but we will still look at using the API from within JavaScript, and then we will look at testing the API afterwards. Anyway, for this video, we're going to create a new store. And the first thing we have to do is to be able to access the data that is coming back to us from the request. So the browser or the API testing tool is going to send us some data, the name of the store, and we have to be able to access that data. So the first thing we have to do is go up to our first line of code and we're going to import something else. We're going to import Flask, JSONify, and also request. Request without an S at the end. There's also a thing called requests, and that's a different package. So from Flask we want to import request. And then in the create store, what we want to do is say request data is equal to request.getJSON. This request is the request that was made to this endpoint. So when the browser sends us the request to create a new store, this request is that one. And the browser will also send us some JSON data, which is the name of the store. So this is going to allow us to get that data back. Then we're going to create a new store, which is going to be a dictionary with a name where the name is request data name, because that's going to be the JSON. When we do get JSON, this method already converts the JSON string into a Python dictionary, so we can access it like that. And also it's going to have a set of items, which is going to be an empty list. We're then going to do stores.append and append our new store. And finally, we're going to return the new store that we've created, just so the browser can understand that we have indeed created this store. So how would we return the new store? I'm sure you got it. Return JSONify of new store. It's important to include JSONify because if not, we will try to return a dictionary and that will fail because we have to return a string. Okay, so this is how we would create a new store. And as I said, in the next few videos we're going to be testing this out with JavaScript, but we will not be able to test the creation of stores with JavaScript. That gets too complicated, so we're going to test it with a different tool. And that tool is what we use professionally very, very often, so it's good for you to learn that as well. To retrieve a specific store, well, all we want to do is go over the stores, finding the one that matches this name, and return that one. So I will write a wee comment here, iterate over stores. If the store name matches, return that one. If none matches, return an error message. And I think you can pause the video at this point and give this a go, because you know how to iterate, you know how to check using an if statement, and you know how to return a store. So go ahead and do that. I would definitely recommend that you try that now. Hopefully you gave it a go, and what I would do is to iterate over stores for store in stores. Stores, remember, is our variable. And then I would say, if the store name is equal to name, which is the one that we're receiving here, then return the store, return JSONify of store. Remember, store is a dictionary, so we can just return that store directly. And if no store matches, we want to return some sort of error message, such as message store not found. That's just to tell whoever's calling the API that there was indeed some sort of error. Okay, now you can do the same thing for the get store /name/item. I'm sure you can go ahead and implement this now yourself, now that you know how the other one works. Hopefully you managed. The way I would do it is actually very similar. For store, in stores, if the store's name matches, then we're going to return the items in that store. So we're going to return a JSONify of items, where that's the store's items. And also, if we don't find anything, we're going to return the appropriate error message. Like so. Finally, the most challenging endpoint is the create item. I'm sure that you can do this as well. If you give it a bit of thought and you look at how we've created a store above, in the create store method, you can do a very similar thing to create an item. Once again, I'd recommend pausing the video and giving this a go, but then I always recommend that, so you may be ignoring this recommendation by now. Hopefully not. So pause the video and give it a go, and then we'll do it here. Hopefully you were successful, and what I would do is, once again, for store in stores, if the store name matches our name, then we're going to create a new item, and that item is going to be one with a name, which is going to be the request data name, and with a price, which is going to be the request, price like that, the request data price. Naturally, you may have already realized the request data doesn't exist in this method, so we have to create it. Request data equal request.getJSON. Like so. So this is our new item there, and what we want to do is append it. So store items.append new item. And then at the end, new item there. At the end, we can return a JSONify of the store. Or if you prefer, you can return JSONify of new item. That may be also an option. It's totally up to you what you want to return, or up to your API rather. Also at the end, we want to return an error message if we didn't find the store. Something to keep in mind is that if we return an item here, that terminates the method and we don't return this message. We will only return this message if we go through every store and we never return anything. So if we start on our first store and the name does not match, we will just skip all of this code and we will move on to the next store. And if the name doesn't match, we will skip all of that code and we'll go into the next one and so on. And eventually, if none of them match, we will never have ran this code here. So we will just exit the loop and return this error message at the end. Okay. Perfect. So these are our endpoints. Now, in the next video, I've got an HTML file for you to download that has some boilerplate code. And then we're going to use that to kind of test this out a bit and look at how you can run some JavaScript calling this API. And after that, we're going to properly test this API using a professional tool, which is free as well. So don't worry about paying anything. So without further ado, I'll see you in the next video with some JavaScript.